there were so many things that I have learned through the process that I feel like I can help people learn the easy way instead of the hard way, just by a few simple things that I've learned along the way.
Hey party people, are you ready to level up your business and your life? I'm Catabri, your host, and this is the Lady Boss Growth Podcast. As the daughter of the coffee queen, Stacey Orndorff, I've seen her journey from a community coffee shop to a 6-figure food truck. She is the current owner of a distribution company that supplies over 200 coffee shops. And now we're on a mission to help you grow by sharing our insights, tips, coffee crawls, and secrets to success. Here we go. Hello, we are here with the Lady Boss herself. Woo. And we are on episode 1 today of the Lady Boss Growth Podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited. Finally, we are launching this.
Yes. So we're going to get right into your origin story and hear a little bit about how you got into coffee, what your life has looked like leading up to this point. Why did you start in coffee, and what was your vision?
Yeah, we lived in a small town of 800 people. And I really wanted to have a gathering place for the community. And I thought, what better thing to do than to start a coffee shop? And it's been about 12 years now. And so it was really before this kind of movement where every small town has a coffee shop. They might have a cafe, or they have a Casey's General Store where the farmers would hang out and drink coffee. But I really wanted a place where kids in our community could come gather, like high school kids. Retired community would have a place that they could come share a cup of coffee. And that was part of my vision. The other thing is I homeschooled you and your brother your whole way through. And a big part of why we homeschooled and part of our priorities was teaching you about business and work and volunteerism, character. And so I thought this also would be a great way to immerse you in business, even though we did a nonprofit to start with. And then for the community, I don't know if I knew this in the beginning, but it definitely became part of it. And it was having the ability to teach high school kids job skills.
Wow.
and train them on their possible first job and get them started in the right way.
That is fantastic that you decided to go along with youth. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you went about helping the youth, what that motivation and drive gave you?
Yeah, the coffee shop was part of a nonprofit, and we had a board, and I was the executive director. And part of our mission was to help our community find a way out of poverty. We lived in a really high rate, a town with really high poverty rate. And we did some work with adults and teaching life skills and that kind of thing. But we really saw with the youth the opportunity to teach them about entrepreneurship as a way out of poverty. And we started a youth group at the coffee shop. It just became like a really cool and safe, fun gathering place just naturally for kids in our community.
That's for sure.
And then we did do like a weekly, planned youth group night, which was great too. But it was really more about just kids coming and hanging out after school, before school, feeding them healthy breakfast and introducing them to new foods. That was fun. But the entrepreneurship came about because I was the farmer's market manager also at this time, because I was volunteering my time at the coffee shop, like as a nonprofit. I didn't get paid to do that. So I had to have a little bit of an income. And while I was at the farmer's market as a manager, no one was doing coffee. No one was selling coffee by the cup. There was somebody that sold beans. And so I saw the opportunity of, if somebody would sell coffee here, they could make some money. So I talked to some of the kids in youth group, and I'm like, what if we did a mobile trailer and all the youth that wanted to be involved could volunteer? We could use that money for our community. We could create jobs for the youth that run it, all kinds of ideas. And so I had 2 or 3 particular high school kids that were really excited about the idea. And so I said, here's what needs to be done if we're going to do this. And one of them came back and was like, he had the whole plan and he was ready to go for it. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. So we started a Java Hub Junior, and we brought it to the farmer's market with the kids are the ones that really spearheaded it. We raised money for it. And myself and my ex-husband and my kids, we all volunteered our time to make it happen.
That's right.
And so we did that for one whole summer. And the kids that ran it, I think they made like $30,000 just running it 1 or 2 days a week.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And they gave money back to the nonprofit, but they also made money for themselves to help pay for college. And I guess they paid. You started with them at the beginning of the year as a volunteer. And I think Kyle came on somewhere in there, and they were able to pay both of you to work for them also, which was really cool. And so that was, a big part of the coffee shop too, is teaching kids about entrepreneurship and seeing that as an alternative to maybe going to college and having a career and working for somebody else. But this is a way that you can take $1, turn it into $5 and make some money.
Okay, can we back up for a second? So you started a nonprofit coffee shop, correct?
Yes.
And how did you even get that going in the first place to be able to, do all these different things and then start this mobile unit? How did you even start in the first place?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So as far as location, our family we bought a church, an old church, and we fixed it up. And the main level was empty. And so we were able to put the coffee shop in that part. So we had our location. Now, as far as equipment and that kind of thing, we worked with, it's kind of crazy, we worked for the company that I now own, or we worked with Coffee King. And they at that time, and still are, a wholesale roasting company and distribution. And the owner was a distant relative of mine. And so I went to him and I'm like, hey, I want to start this coffee shop. What do I need? Like, how can you help me? And so they were very instrumental in helping us get going. So, but we didn't have an espresso machine, and a commercial espresso machine, like low end used, you might be able to find one for $1,500 to $2,000, like an old used one. And we didn't have that as a nonprofit. But the church that we had been going to, they had a coffee shop and they closed down. And I asked, could we borrow those since you're not using them? And they said, yeah. So they had two, I think they're Cuisinart home espresso machines. And that's what we started with. I don't know. I think we did buy a grinder from Coffee King for the espresso machines. But then Coffee King gave us a coffee brewer and a grinder to use as long as we would buy coffee from them, which now I understand we do that as part of our service to offices and stuff that want to use our coffee. So yeah, I got to see how that whole thing worked. I worked with the roaster at Coffee King to come up with what coffee we wanted to offer. But yeah, we started with these two really slow machines. People had to wait like 5 minutes to get one latte. It was crazy. But thankfully it didn't take long, and we were able to upgrade to a $1,500 used espresso machine. And I think that might have been Goldie Hawn. There might have been one before Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
That
was a beautiful gold single group espresso machine.
Love that. Pulled such good shots.
Great shots of espresso.
Yeah. And we still have that machine. It just needs some repairs.
That would be so nice.
There was another machine in between there because Sarah and Micah ended up buying that one.
Yes, I don't remember that one as well. Okay, so now going from how you started this nonprofit coffee shop and then you involved the youth, you started a mobile unit called Java Hub Junior. Mm-hmm. How did you go on from there into more of an entrepreneurship with yourself instead of the youth and taking out the nonprofit section of it?
So we did that Java Hub Junior nonprofit mobile unit for a whole summer. The kids ran it, and they did not want to do it the next summer because they realized like they gave their whole summer to running this business. And it's kind of funny because they only ran it 2 days a week, but the prep in between and the book work and all that
a lot
stuff,
of work.
Yeah, they found out like we want our summer back. And so the next summer, the nonprofit as a whole, like the board, and then our family decided we will volunteer our time again. We will, employ youth that want to run it, take volunteers, and do it another summer. So we did that as a family. I think I did quit Farmers Market, and I did that. And I think I was able to get like a few $100s a month or something to help run the thing. And so we did it for another summer. used that money. I know we used part of that money to help put a roof on our neighbor's house, which was really cool. Yeah, Ron Jenkins.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember
and
that.
we painted another lady's house in town. Like we bought all the paint and then provided the labor. So it really did some cool things in our community. We had a food pantry, so we bought food for that with the profits from Job Hub and Job Hub Junior. And then after that summer, we were like, what are we doing? This is so much work. We are not really getting paid that much. And it was mostly just our family by then doing it. It wasn't even a ministry, although the money was helping. But it's like, this just doesn't make sense to do. And then, of course, it wasn't ours. It was the nonprofits and the board. We had a board of 7 people. And nobody wanted to volunteer their time or figure out a way to keep it going. So we're like, okay, we're done. I spent that winter, and you spent that winter with me, trying to figure out what to do next. I was still kind of running the Java Hub, but just trying to find a way for a little more financial independence, I guess. And we tried some different things. And finally, I just had this realization of like everything that I've tried. I've done 9 other businesses kind of halfway. And I'm like, of course, the one that is the hardest work is the one that has a potential to make money. And I was like, if I go all in on this, I think I can make a living doing this.
I was going to ask, at what point did you realize that this was a legitimate business that could bring you a good income?
I don't know that I had realized it yet, but I knew the potential was there because I was able to see what this little nonprofit vintage trailer was able to do. And it made money. I mean, it went back to the nonprofit, but it had the ability to make a profit. And so I think just seeing the numbers, and that was like, okay, this business model works. If I would tweak a few things, if I would create a brand that I want to do, that's more my personality, and putting that into it, if I could take away the hard parts of the vintage trailer, like the water jugs and pulling it with a trailer and all these things, make the brand my own, make the menu my own, I think, and run it full time, because we really hadn't been with the trailer, then I think I can make this work. And so that's what I decided to do. And thankfully, I had an uncle that I went to and asked if I could borrow money. And I encourage people to do this all the time. People think there's free money out there. There's not. There's not grants to start a business. It's very rare that you can find grant money to start a business. Even if you're a woman, it's not a thing. But I have heard more stories from people that have started businesses who said they took this step, they took the risk, and they asked somebody they knew that had money and asked them if they could borrow money. And so that's what I did. And it was scary. I was afraid of being rejected. I was afraid of looking foolish. I was afraid that I might fail, but I had all my ducks in a row. I went with a plan. I didn't just go ask willy-nilly. I came up with a plan, and I went to him, and he said, yeah, I'll do that for you. And so we found a truck. And that was part of making things easier, was having a drivable truck. And we found a truck, and he wrote a check, and I was able to start my own business.
Wow.
So at what point, it really was probably 2 years into the business that I was like, I know how to do this. Like, I can make a living at this, and there's something I do different than everybody else that is helping us kill it. And I don't say this to brag or anything, but you recognize when you're at events and you have the longest line, not because you're the slowest truck, but you have the longest line because you have such a great following of people and you have such a great product. And really, it's about the brand. And that's when I realized I have a talent at creating a viral brand that people can relate to and that people want to support. And of course, there's a lot of things that go along with that, like quality products and consistency and customer service. But 2 years in, when I realized I had really created a brand, that's when I thought, you know what, I'm good at this.
So with this coffee and food truck, it was a coffee and food truck, and it was called Coffee and Nosh. So you mentioned that branding, it was super important and a big part of your success per se
Yes.
in this Coffee and Nosh food truck. Can you tell us a little bit more about what other abilities or talents set you apart that you knew you did well and that you implemented into all of these businesses?
Yeah. I think team building for one. Like I know a lot of people are afraid to hire people. And of course I started with friends and family, but I did it very intentionally, where if I'm hiring friends and family, I'm still taking them through a hiring process. I'm still treating them as employees. So I'm building those systems and preparing myself to hire with outside of friends and family. And I got a lot of criticism, like, oh, you just hire friends and family. And I remember the first non-family member that I hired, and it was a big deal. But I have no shame. I have no shame on practicing with people that you trust and building your processes with them. And I think if you can employ friends and family and still get along at the end of the day, then that says something about you as a boss and as a person. So I take pride in it. But yeah, my ability to build a team is strong, and I'm excited to tell more about that in the future. But then also building systems and processes and realizing, like, I remember every day coming back from farmer's market and me and you and my son sitting down, tired, sweaty, but we were determined to figure out, how can we make more money next time? Like, what can we do to make this less stressful, be more efficient, and ultimately make money? And I remember one revelational time was when we timed how long it took for a tailor to hand a drink out, call a name, wait for them, and then go back to her station to get the next drink. And we figured out something crazy. Like, it took us, out of our whole time of being there, which was like 6 hours, it took us a whole hour of time just calling out and waiting and handing out. So we changed that process. And because of that, we were able to get more people through the line, keep that line moving. So we would practice those things and just figure out, how can we shave off seconds?
I remember even down to the smallest things of us pouring sparkling water into a glass. There's different ways you can pour it, and certain ways are faster, and we timed it to figure out what was best.
Yes, and I think part of the inspiration was the Ray Kroc movie about McDonald's and seeing how they do. Like, I always had in the back of my mind, how would we franchise this business? How would we make repeatable processes? And ultimately, how can we make more money? So I think that has set me apart, and that I'm always thinking about that. My team was always thinking about that. And we have really creative solutions for doing that.
I think you also encouraged your team to bring solutions to you, whether they were going to work or not, and you probably knew if it was worth a try. You always encouraged people to bring new things to you and present them to try it out. Yeah. And they felt comfortable doing it.
I have a whole segment in my episode that we can do that is going to be about how to empower your team to bring you ideas and solutions, and why people don't, which I get, and something I've had to work on. So that'll be fun.
Okay, so you had done this business for 2 years now. You continued to go, but at this point you were at the 2-year mark, and you had learned all these different important things to grow your business. But I want to know why it was important to you to grow your business.
Oh, it's a great question, because I realized that for some people, it's not. Some people are like, oh, I figured this out. I have a consistent income. I'm just going to keep everything as it is.
Definitely.
But I guess I didn't know it was important, but it's just part of who I am. First of all, I'm always like, grow. My dad always is like, is it ever enough for you? I'm like, no. And it's not even about money. Like, it's just it's the achievement of like being able to go boop, 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 which is interesting, because I'm in a new venture we'll talk about later that doesn't like that. But so it was exciting, first year sales after the Job Hub Junior, but first as Coffee and Nosh, we were at like 90,000. And then the next year we were able to double that. And then the next year we were able to add another 100,000. And so I think, like, just catching that fire of like, oh my gosh, I know how to increase sales. I can, do this. It was just so exhilarating, but it became important because it really became an avenue for me to gain financial independence. And that is what I needed to get over some challenges that, I've had in my life. And so it became important that I make a living from this and I be able to support myself and that I build something that is worth value. And at that time I didn't think, oh, this is something my kids I'm going to pass down to, because I knew both of you were like, no,
it was a lot of work.
You're like, I can't wait to get out of here so I don't have to work. And my son didn't work the last 2 years of the business. I mean, he helped out here and there, but so I knew that wasn't going to be a thing. But I thought, if I can build this enough to establish a brand that's valuable enough to sell beyond the assets, then I can do the next thing. And then I've established myself as an authority on how to grow a business. And I did that. And that from the beginning, I had read something about you're not really an entrepreneur if you're not willing to sell your business. And from the very beginning, I always had it in the back of my head. I'm going to sell this business. I'm going to turn it into something that is sellable. And so I did that.
That is amazing. You did do that. You had a goal and you went for it and you did it.
I did.
Which is not everybody can say. So
that's right.
On your growth journey, I want to know, what were some of your proudest moments? Because to me, it sounds like there are so many ups and downs with this business. And I know because I was in it with you. But I want to know your proudest moments.
Ooh, I don't know. Well, for sure, Ragbri. I mean,
hands down,
pulling off Ragbri, which for our listeners that don't know, is this giant bicycle ride across Iowa. It's 7 days. You move every single day. We follow the riders. We set up a tent and our truck and everything. We camp along the way, and
thousands of people.
Thousands. It's like 20,000 bicyclists every day, and you're moving with them and you're feeding them breakfast and you're giving them, selling them coffee. Yes. And it's 2:00 in the morning setups. We're done by 10 in the morning. It's a crew of 17 people. It's crazy. And we gradually worked into it. The first year we did 1 day. And then the next year we did 2 days.
We did. We were slowly creeping in it.
And then I think we went to 5 days, and then we went to all 7. And then we did that for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I think. That just pulling that off and having, I think my break even point going out was like $23,000. So going into that week knowing I've got $23,000 invested into this right now.
That is insane.
That if we don't make money, I'm coming back and I'm getting a job or something, I'm going to the bank for a line of credit to keep us throughout the season. And so, but going and just making a ton of money doing that and keeping a crew together, nobody getting really hurt.
There's a lot of emotional behind the scenes things. A lot of emotional. With your crew that long.
Yes. So that's definitely my proudest moment. I think just anytime someone would come to the truck and they would just stand there and they'd look at us and they'd just shake their head, look around. You're running a well-oiled machine.
They did say that a lot.
Yes. Whenever I would get that, and it was usually like out of town events. I mean, there's a few people locally that, would verbalize that they see that, but usually it was in Omaha, in Des Moines, or on Ragbri.
Certain people who know, know that it's running well for what's going on. Yes,
those were proud moments. And I think, I don't know if proud is the right, but just knowing me, you, Kaden, knowing we did this together. And I don't know, just knowing how the two of you always supported it. And I was able to lead in a way that you didn't hate me or resent me in the end of it, but knowing you were there on your own will and that you wanted to work for me for the most part. And even when Caden, couldn't work anymore because he was going to college or whatever, just his support of it, that's a proud mom moment of, I have kids that support this, believe in it, and have spent a lot of time building it with me.
Well, I think you built something that we were also proud of. Like you had this thing, like even your employees they were proud to be working for us. They were excited to get to be on our team.
That's
and
true,
so I think you should be proud of
Yeah,
the environment that you created for that.
Yes, I love that. And I still have employees that reach out to me from time to time and tell me how life-changing working for Coffee and Nosh was, or maybe something I said that was super encouraging to them. And so that makes me proud for sure. That makes it worth it.
Reflecting on all these proud moments, I want to know, are people able to replicate something that you have built, such as Coffee and Nosh, your food truck?
I absolutely think so. And that's why I'm doing this podcast.
That's good news.
Yeah. Like for real, I just went to an event this last weekend and I saw somebody on their very first day getting started. And oh man, I was so proud of them, first of all. And I try, when I see somebody go set up their food truck or their tent stand for the very first time, but they make it to the farmer's market, I try to go up and tell them, like, listen, if you do nothing else, this is a huge accomplishment. You made it here, which reminds me, we tried doing Java Hub Junior, my mom and dad actually, with their little vintage trailer. They were going to do coffee and I was helping them. 2 times they set out and they didn't make it to the market. They got a flat tire once.
That's right.
And then I don't remember what the other time was. And then they never did it. And to me, like, us getting every year, the first day getting there is so hard.
There's a lot leading up to it.
So much. And when you finally land in your spot,
it's like,
you're like, oh, we did it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And then you just run on pure adrenaline to the end of the day. So anyway, I try to, encourage people when it's their first day and they made it. Like, listen, you made it. Okay. You're going to learn a lot.
That is big.
But you made it here. So anyway, yes, I saw this stand and there were so many things that I have learned through the process that I feel like I can help people learn the easy way instead of the hard way, just by a few simple things that I've learned along the way. And listen, like 6 years of doing this, how many times did we change our processes and we're like, how did we not do this from the beginning? What were we thinking?
So many times.
I think about the magic on the lavender lemonade. I don't even know what we did in the beginning. It was crazy, but then we used the squeeze bottles.
I think we started with steam pitchers or something.
Yeah.
And then we finally made it to the squeeze bottle. Saved our life.
Yes. And there's so many things like that. And the use of bungees and just, laminated thing. Anyway, so if I can save people the time and energy and just skip from here to here, I definitely think it's possible. I know with this one stand I saw there, for sure I could help them make $1,000 more per week, per event, by just changing a few things, implementing a few things. And so, yes, I 100% believe that anybody can do what I have done if they, just do a few things differently, take some tips that I've got, build a brand. And I spent a lot of time in the winters building the brand, like the behind the scenes, not just the logo, the fonts. It's not that. It's about establishing a brand that people want to follow, want to support. We'll get into that more.
It's a personality.
It's a personality. So yes, I do think it is replicable. I just not sure that everybody is willing to do what it takes to get those numbers.
Well, it's great news to hear that somebody can replicate what you've done, because what you've done is pretty amazing. But I want to know where you're at now. So you had the coffee shop, nonprofit, then you had Java Hub Junior, and then you had the food truck. What happened after that?
All right. So I went down this path of selling Coffee and Nosh. And first, I tried to sell it, and that was a winter, which was great experience learning how to sell a business. But I didn't sell it. I had to go out another season. But I had a couple people that came to me as investors and said, if we invested in Coffee and Nosh, could we grow it into brick and mortar and multiple locations or franchise? And that's the direction I'd always wanted to go. I also had like products that were possible, like retail stuff. So the plan was to build a brick and mortar. And this was right after COVID, and construction costs just went through the roof. And when we got the estimate back for the build out, we were like, yeah, we have the money, and they had, the ability to invest, but we were like, these numbers just don't make sense. We don't know. This is a big risk, and I'm a risk taker, but it was too big of a risk. Our brand had not been established as a brick and mortar yet, so we weren't sure how that would translate, even though, the brand had become well known. And so there were a lot of things involved in that. So the owner of Coffee King, the roasting company, knew that I was looking for some different things to do and, my way forward. And he said, why don't you buy my business? And I was like, okay, I didn't know it was for sale, but I had always wanted to own Coffee King. I had told other people they should buy Coffee King and like rebrand it and build it. Like there was so much potential there. And so I started down the path of trying to figure out what it would take to buy it. It took 6 months. Had I not had the experience that I did building Coffee and Nosh and all of these other things, there's no way I would have any business buying a business like this. It's a monster of a business, but I believed in my capability to turn it around as far as the brand, the team, the processes. And even though it's a different business model, I truly believed I could take all of the skills that I possess and transfer that to this business and grow it. And so, yeah, I was able to. It was a grueling process. And so that's where I'm at now. I own a roasting and wholesale distribution. So we have over 200 coffee shops that we distribute coffee to.
Wow.
We have over 500 like offices and hotels and medical clinics, that kind of thing that we distribute coffee to. And so it's a different business model, but I'm still in coffee. I'm still in processes. I'm still in team building and brand strategy. And so now just realizing the talent that I have for helping coffee shops, understanding so many of our customers started for the same purposes I did. They wanted to create a community gathering place. They wanted to do something that their kids could do alongside of them. I see that all the time. We're in the Midwest, and so we have a lot of rural, small town coffee shops. It's the same purpose, so I understand it. And so I'm really looking for people that maybe want to go beyond that, maybe want to have multiple locations, maybe want to really grow their mobile presence. And I want to help people get to the next level based on what I know and what I've learned. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow.
That's what brought me to this podcast.
I want to know, what is one piece of advice, one tip that you would give to an existing or somebody who's looking to open a coffee shop or food truck or mobile unit?
Yes. So I've got one piece of advice for anybody starting, and then I've got one piece of advice for people that want to grow. So my piece of advice for anybody that's starting is start with what you have and don't look at what you don't yet have. And that's biblical. That's biblical. That's where I get that. And it's so true. I started with borrowed espresso machines because I couldn't have the big, nice espresso machine. I couldn't have the brand new 2 group. I couldn't have the self-dosing. But I started with what I did have. And I've done this a dozen times where I don't have all the perfect things, but I have certain things and I use those tools to get started. You don't even know if you're going to like it. And so putting all that money into something that you haven't even tried out is foolish. And so if you can do a cold brew tent because it's only going to cost you, a couple $100s to get started on that, then start with a cold brew tent. If you can get that loan, go for it, but be educated about it. I see so many food trucks especially, not so much coffee shops, but some of that too, where they don't know the work that goes into it. Food trucks that start and die in 1 year because they didn't know what they were getting into. So don't put all your money into this brand new truck or trailer when you don't even know what you're getting into. Start making food for your neighbors. Start making food for your church, your kids' school. Like, start doing it that way. Start, putting a little menu out there and selling it. Make sure you even like making food for people. That's my advice for starting. My piece of advice for growing is be open-minded. I see so many people that don't want to take advice, They don't want to have anybody give input. They think they can figure it out. And then when they are given advice, they don't want to hear it. And so there's just so many simple things that businesses could do. And I get it. It's somewhat of a risk. It's somewhat thinking differently. But if you look around at who is succeeding, you can replicate that by doing what they do. It's not anything new. There's nothing new under the sun. And so just being open-minded to trying something different, or even, okay, I get that you love this certain kind of coffee. Like my favorite coffee is not going to be a big seller to people. So are you in it to make money? Are you in it? You can combine your passion and making money both, but you have to be strategic about it. You have to be smart about it. At the end of the day, I'm not doing pour over coffee in my truck because it's slow and people don't appreciate it enough. In my area, you can't charge what you need and people won't wait the length of time. And so it just doesn't make sense. Just get brewed coffee. So just things like that of like, don't be so stubborn about what you love. Think about what your customers want. Listen to your customers. I can go all day. This will be another episode. One piece of advice, be open-minded. Think
That's
different.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing your story of how you got started, all these different ventures you went down, all these important things that you have, and for giving tips. I'm excited to hear what else you have for everyone listening. And I want to know, what can listeners expect in upcoming episodes?
Okay, I'm super excited that part of what we are going to be doing, well, I'm always going to drop some knowledge about being a lady boss and having growth mindset, tips and tricks for running a successful coffee shop and food truck, brand strategy, team building, that kind of thing. But then we're also going to take people on a coffee crawl and feature, we call them coffee crawls. It's just
Love coffee crawls.
and really all it is like, oh, we're going to Minnesota today. How many coffee shops can we stop at along the way? Or when we're there, how many coffee shops can we visit? And so I'm going to count up. We've been to hundreds of coffee shops across the United States and in other countries. And we're like, we share it on Instagram. Well, a little bit here and there, but we thought it'd be fun on each episode to feature one of the coffee shops that we did a coffee crawl. And it'll be kind of a coffee review, not like what is good, what is bad, but like what they should be appreciated for. What are they doing? What is their menu? What is their decor? And if this is what you're looking for, then go visit this coffee shop.
Yeah. I think it's always fun doing coffee crawls because some people might just say, oh yeah, let's go to a bunch of coffee shops, and they just go and get a coffee. But we are there analyzing all the business aspects of it, analyzing their processes. And that's what we find fun when we go to coffee shops. And of course the coffee. But
Yes. All of it. And then I think we'll probably do like a product feature because we have 2,700 SKUs that we sell at Coffee King. And so we're like, we should feature some of our products. We get test products all the time. And so, testing out new up and coming products, I think will be fun and testing them against the tried and true brands and seeing what we think. So we'll be doing a little bit of that too.
Okay. Well, I also want to know, where can we find more about what you're doing, what you have to offer people? Where can we find more information?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram, Lady Boss Growth, and I'm also on TikTok, YouTube.
Thank you so much for sharing all your tips with us today. I hope the listeners learn how to level up their business and learn from the original Lady Boss. Why are you called the Lady Boss?
My employees just started calling me that. I'd never heard it before.
That is true.
I'd never heard it before. And I'm like, is it boss lady, lady boss? But they just kept calling me lady boss.
I've always heard boss lady.
Yeah.
I don't know how that, everybody's called you lady boss.
Yeah. I like it because I want to be a lady first and a boss second. So I like lady boss. And I don't know, it just stuck. People just started calling me that. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's
like
why
customers too. Customers.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, it's lady boss.
Yeah.
That's why it's called the Lady Boss Growth Podcast. She's teaching us how to grow and level our businesses.
Yes.
Level up.
Level up.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye.